What's up, Bears fans? RP here, Bears Essentials with the Dr. Uzi Mathismo
Yep.
in beast mode. We've been sitting here chatting for a while, and we're sorry we're a little bit late to the party, Richter, but we're here now, and we want to get into Bears football. But this is truly our very first podcast, so we're really happy to be here to be talking about our favorite team in Chicago, but also representing the Bears Essentials. You can always see us on Bears Essentials on YouTube, which you're probably watching on right now. And if you like us, you can subscribe to our channel, please. And you can even like us, leave some comments at the bottom about what you think the Bears are doing right now. Are they scrambling for answers, or are they cool as a cucumber on the other side of the pillow? That's not something.
Yeah.
That sounded like, is it?
When you eat in bed, that's what happens, maybe.
So I bet, well, we're here to kind of give you guys a down low on what is happening in the last couple of weeks. If you watch any of our episodes beforehand, you've seen we've kind of go week by week, letting you know what the Bears are doing, who's performing, what's happening. Obviously, the Bears are 3-1, and we can get right into it and get talking about that performance against the Colts, which was probably one of the Bears' most worst efforts in team history as far as offensively. So 19 to 11, and we're talking about 269 total yards, but really 100 of those yards were in garbage time there at the end of the game. So we're talking about truly 3 points the whole game, and that's just not enough. That is just not good enough. So what say you, my counterpart?
Yeah, I mean, 3 points, horrible. Granted, the Colts are a tough team, tough defense. They have actually, pretty solid quarterback, and he's good at getting rid of the ball, put it that way.
No, he could read a defense.
He could read a defense, but I mean, to be playing at home and perform like that in the run, in the pass, play calling, defense, they even had a block punt in this game, and so it was a pretty rough game for the Bears. And right now it's there's a little soul searching going on, because as we kind of look and project into the remainder of the season, it's like, where are we going to get our offense from? How are we going to really step up our game from here?
Right. So we did. Yeah, the coaching, the switch was made last week, obviously, from Mitch Trubisky to Nick Foles. Nick Foles did not have a very good game statistically. I believe he was, let's see, I can tell you, 26 for 42, 249 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Now, obviously, a lot of those yards and that touchdown came in the garbage time. But he was constantly pressured. We saw some of the O-line getting exposed, like Leno Jr. and some other, and really the run blocking wasn't there that we saw last 2 weeks. Now we're talking about a really good defense they're going up against in Indy, but at the same time there seemed to be less of a push the second half as well. So that's, I guess, what I'm talking about as far as effort, and wondering if what you kind of, if the team knows its identity at this point. And we're going to get into that later, because we're going to talk about the coaching and how the team has lacking as far as especially an offensive identity.
Right.
But yeah, we would have liked a better push. We only had 28 total yards, which is god awful and substandard.
Yeah, and especially considering the talent. It's not that we have a super deep running back field here, but David Montgomery is a guy who, he shows all of the skills, all of the really determination, the mindset. He has a lot of very good attributes, and we've seen that earlier in the season. And for us to pull off fewer than 30 yards in a game is pretty bad.
Pretty terrible. Yeah, and again, you made up a very good point that we'll get into. We'll talk about Nagy later, but we saw a lack of formations and a lack of the I formation, you were saying in particular, having a lead blocker for Montgomery during some of these run plays, and that seemed like that. He did not have that in the game plan.
It sure looked like Nagy was avoiding the I formation, and we know that he's really a mad scientist. He's looking at the defensive backfield. He's looking at ways to, manipulate safeties and DBs, and I don't think that he has a really a strong affinity to you know blocking schemes and figuring out how to get running backs going. And David Montgomery, again, as a talented runner, you can see when he is deeper in the backfield, and when he gets the ball and has an opportunity to use his vision to find cutback lanes, to find gaps in the line, and to grind out yardage, that he can be effective. When you're handing the ball to him when he's standing right next to you, in an I formation type of scenario, it's not that he can't do that, but I don't think that that's really taking full advantage of his skill set.
Exactly, and that's the judgment and the understanding of what of your players and their capabilities and how you incorporate them into a offensive system has not really been Nagy's strength quite yet, in my opinion. But we will see, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about those QBs real quick. For as far as Nick Foles, he doesn't get the time to practice with the team as far as the whole week. He's had 1 week to practice with the team. Didn't have the preseason. Didn't have the training camp really reps either. So I think it's hard to really put a lot of pressure on him. I do remember him almost getting his leg broken into, and swallowed my tongue practically watching that. Like, not that I am against Trubisky coming back in and trying to help, but I don't think he would have done much better against this defense. All the Trubisky fans that want him to come right back in, you got to give Nick at least a couple games to play.
Sure.
And we got to figure out who we are as far as an identity of an offense. So tell me about Nagy, and this is my thing is Nagy made that switch to Nick Foles quickly, but he's sticking by his guns, obviously. So he's got to stick by his guns now. So we've got to see in the next couple of weeks, if that improves. If not, then we kind of see that our head coach is exposed. Now, one more thing as far as that coaching goes too, before you break it down. Frank Reich is the guy who worked with Nick Foles, right? As far as being a mentor for this guy. Frank Reich led one of the greatest or the greatest comeback in NFL playoff history, right? In the AFC Championship game or something like that with Buffalo.
Like the Bills.
Yeah, just like Nick Foles, he was a backup, right? Just for Jim Kelly. So the guy coaches him up and he knows him. So he basically their coach outcoached Nagy.
Our coach.
And it's not even their head coach.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough scenario. It's a tough situation. And, I think that, to me, what it comes down to from the coach's perspective is, and it's hard to talk about the quarterback for the Chicago Bears, whether it's Foles or Trubisky, without talking about the head coach, because, that's why Nagy is on our team. That was the whole point of bringing Nagy on to the Chicago Bears, was that he's supposed to, be able to maximize the quarterback position. Right. And exactly. And that's what it is I feel like, in a way, that Nagy is fundamentally flawed, because his little note about be you, and it's kind of his mantra, his ethos, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that's what we need. I think that what Bears fans need, what we desire, is a coach whose ethos, whose ethic, philosophy is win. And when you're just trying to be you, and that's all you really care about, and that's really what you're pushing for, then I don't know if you're doing the things that you need to win the game. Does that make sense? I think that
Mm.
he's really locked into his mindset, his philosophy,
Well,
his
and that's
plays.
what we'll see too in the next couple weeks. Will
Yeah,
he be a good enough coach to, uh, hand over the play calls? Let's say when
man.
if he continues to fail, what is it going to look like? So it's truly 3 points only, and that was
Yeah,
obviously one of the most disappointing parts, especially after a 3 touchdown fourth quarter with the
right,
week prior.
man.
Uh, so the fire was not there. Now we'll talk about going against the Bucks defense in a little bit, but I want to kind of get to the defense too, and I want to kind of obviously the Bears let up some big plays early, and really that's kind of become a habit sometimes
Yes.
with this defense, especially when they are lacking an early pass rush. But I'm wondering, we can break it down here about starting with the front seven, and we'll start with the D line. What are these guys doing out there? D line linebackers, are we only rushing 4 people? Do we need more pressure from the tackle position? Are we missing
Eddie
Eddie
Goldman.
Goldman? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, what do they say about the defense? It's you got to stop the run. And I think that the loss of Eddie Goldman for the Bears is definitely, it's exposed. I think some of the elements of our kind of defensive philosophy, which is really more or less a two gap style. We play a
right.
lot of two gaps with our interior, and I think that while Hicks is definitely a sturdy guy. We really like Hicks to be in the backfield. We like Hicks to be making plays against the quarterback and against the running backs in the backfield. So even though he's like 350 pounds, he's not your prototypical, three technique, one gap player. But I think as a fan, that's how I like to see him play. So when he's standing up, an offensive tackle with two hands, and he's playing two gaps in the run, that's not how I prefer to see him. And
Yeah.
uh and then the other guys that we have on the line, it seems like they're struggling to really hold up on the inside, and that's
And I
really
again,
putting us
I
in a bad
can't.
position.
It is, and I feel always terrible talking about trying to find the bad parts about the Chicago Bears defense, because truly they only let up 10 points in the first half.
Right.
Is that what it was? But I mean, they played really
Um,
well. Khalil Mack dropped an interception.
yes. Yeah.
That would have been really huge, I think, for turning the kind of game point, turn point, whatever. But
Yeah. And Roquan
um,
had his has
and
it it is had his interception called back.
that's right, another one which the Bears have been getting some really crappy calls early
Yeah,
in the season here especially on defense.
for sure.
Um, like Eddie Jackson's touchdown as well.
Yep.
But I think I want to just say that the defense did perform real well. They stopped the run when they had to. You expect your team to score more than 11 points, but here we are being like, well, if there's better pass rush, then shit. Excuse
Mhm.
me, then. But in the end, I think that the defense is going to be fine and would be that much more effective if the offense could score points. And you notice when the offense scores points, there's still never that true belief from the defense that this is going to be a continuous thing, which comes back to, again, the team identity, the offensive identity, that
Right.
if the defense knows who they are, they're just waiting for the offense to catch up and be a part of the show. And it's like, you don't have to be the biggest part of the show. That could be us, but you just
Yeah.
got to come ready with your lines ready and, be prepared.
You know what? I think that's a really good point. That's a really good point, RP. And just I think maybe this is just where I'm a little biased, because I'm a big fan of the swarming, ball hawking, forcing the fumble. I love that style of
Robert
defense.
Parrish, remember that guy?
Man, absolutely. And the fact is that the Bears don't have that style of defense, but it doesn't mean that it can't be an effective
Right.
championship caliber team.
And it's
defense.
right, and it's very hard to be having an aggressive as far as the kind of defense that we like, that aggressive. It's hard to do in the NFL now
Right.
because of how pass aware and how spread offenses are.
That's true. That's true too.
So
But again, and again, it's my preference. But I would also like to just take a minute here to just think about when you're looking at kind of comparing the Colts defense to what we saw with the Bears defense. All right. So I'm not saying, the Colts have a really good aggressive defense. But I think when as a fan coming into this season and you're thinking Hicks and Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith and we're just listing all the players, you know, I think that for me that I did have higher expectations for where they would be performing. And I'm not going to blame the Bears defense for for the loss. But I have to admit that I feel like they are not in general playing up to the expectations that I had for them at the beginning of this season. So
right, and I think that's you and a lot of people. I think it's interesting though. I think that this is for a lot of teams as the year goes. You'll see which teams are going to be the teams that are going to be strong through the rest of the season
right.
and bypassing a lot of the soft tissue injuries, season-ending injuries, and all the crap that's happening like right now with having no beginning of a preseason or mini
Right.
camp and if you can make it like that's would be a shame if the Bears had had a 3-0 record and squandered it to end up being to not use be a good team. Hopefully they'll figure out their way as far as Nagy goes and calling the plays, and maybe he will hand over the play calls at some point. We're not sure. We had one of our friends make a really good point here. Cornell McIntosh
Mhm.
says they can't get production with running if majority of the snaps are from shotgun. They ran better when Trubisky was under the center.
Mm.
So that is a great argument that a lot of people are making about that. The pass rush. Would Trubisky be able to have avoided that and made those 10-yard, 15-yard, 40-yard runs? Now, the argument I would have for that is that in the end, neither one of these quarterbacks are able to get the ball in the end zone for 3 quarters.
Right.
So that's in the end. I'm not sure how much better Trubisky would have been. We'll find out, I think, in the next couple of weeks, right? Will he have to switch back? Because I know Foles keeps getting hit like that, man.
That is really the big question with Foles, and I think that many people have highlighted his fragility. He's a fragile, not that he's a fragile guy, but he is susceptible to taking big hits. He can take hits, and we just hope that he's able to really last, especially given the situation, given the Nagy perspective, which is, hey, let's line them up in shotgun and let's throw the ball. Like teams know that we're gonna pass, and if we can't
Look, an
find some
empty
balance,
backfield.
yeah, exactly. And if we
God,
and
if
if
I
we
have
can't
to see one more Nagy empty backfield on second down
or fourth down,
or
how about
fourth
that?
down, right?
you
Sure,
know and
sure.
and so we're becoming like we're making ourselves a one-dimensional team. And when you have a quarterback like Foles, who isn't the most mobile quarterback and who is susceptible to big hits, you're in a way kind of setting your players up to fail to a certain extent. And be you, let's be what we need to be in order to win. And I think when it comes to the NFL, balance is a very important component to this team game. And so I would just again, as a fan, I'm not an NFL head coach, but as a fan, I would like to see incorporating some more balance on offense, and I think that that would be a good place to kind of start
For
building
sure.
an identity for this offense.
Well, there you have it. Yeah, you heard it here from the doctor, Mathismo, and he is truly in beast mode. I'm on that train, man, because the Bears do need improvement in all parts of the game right now. I think the
Right.
team itself is has to truly find a unified identity, but I think the offense has to kind of show the defense that it can score more than 3 points. So
Yeah, no doubt.
when now going into next week, we have a short week, but now those Bears coming off a really terrible loss. I said, shit, terrible loss.
A terrible.
Shit, terrible mushrooms. The Bears are going to have to play the Bucks. So now the Bears are 3-1, and
Yep.
the Packers won last night, so they're up top of the division at 4-0. The Bears are now at 3-1, and we're trying to go against another really good defense. So they play a similar style of defense, but they're also. I think I don't think they're as good against the pass, or their Colts are first in almost everything.
Yeah,
They're like
Colts are
first
pretty
around
good.
the bar, fourth at something. But
Mhm.
but again, another good defense. What are you seeing here as far as the Bears going into this football game and the matchup between this Bucks defense and now the Nick Foles Bears offense? Are they going to try to run the ball?
Again, to me, it's imperative that they try to run the ball and to create that balance.
Mm-hmm. So definitely, if they do run obviously we want Nick Foles to be protected. So that's the best way to keep your quarterback protected is to actually run the ball. So hopefully they can do that and get a little bit of a push on the defensive side of the ball. Um, I mean, the roster is stacked. So the Bears defense again is going to have a better challenge than they did the week last week. So
Right.
it'll be fun to see.
Well, and also, when we look at Tom Brady, this guy is in his mid 40s now.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I think he's very similar to plays a very similar style that we saw last week. In that you're seeing a quarterback who's really is smart, very good at reading defense, not afraid to get rid of the ball quickly, to check it down. And, again,
And completely immobile.
Right, but what one thing that I would like to see really just like a key for the Bears next week is improve your tackling. It was one of the worst aspects of the game last week was the poor tackling, guys just breaking free and like breaking tackles, and I hate that. I cannot stand watching offensive players, wide receivers, running backs break free from our linebackers, defensive line, safety, so we
And
need
again,
better tackling.
to your point, Doctor, usually when you're able to break tackles, that means you're one-on-one with the defender, and
Right.
that goes completely against your whole gang tackle theory,
Yep.
which means your nut defense isn't getting it done. There should always be more than one person hitting the ball at one time. At least that's how we used to play back
That's
in
how
the
we do
day.
it. That's right.
But hey, yeah, I want to break down a couple people. We kind of got a late start, so I'm going to wrap things up a little bit earlier.
Wrap it up.
Mathismo, what do you have a score, or do you think the Bears can put up points in this game?
I my thought is it's going to be kind of similar to last game. I believe that I predicted 23 ish 24-13 is going to go to the Bucks, unfortunately.
24. Okay, I'll say 17-24 Bucks as well.
Okay.
I
All
think we'll
right.
score some 10 points, and then we'll get 7 again in garbage time. Mark my words, 7 in garbage time. So,
Great
anyways,
prediction.
and again, big ups to let's see. I don't want to. I'm a spoiler alert for you guys if you're watching the basketball game right now. The spoiler alert. Don't listen if you don't want to know. The Lakers are playing the Heat, and the score is 73-70. The Lakers are up right now, 74-70. So Jimmy Butler's coming back in.
All right.
So there's that. And we are the Bears Essentials. I am RP. This is the Dr. Uzi Mathismo. If you guys like our stuff, you can check us out on this YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like us if you would. Check out our episodes that come out weekly. We will be doing this live podcast from here on out at around 9 p.m. So we'll get started a little earlier for you guys who are Central Time Standard. But until then, we want you guys to do one thing, and that's to bear down and bear down big time. When we go into, we're going to Tampa, right? Playing in Tampa?
Well,
are we playing at home?
It doesn't
Not that it
matter.
matter.
It doesn't matter where we're playing. We're bearing down.
Doesn't matter where we're playing. We're not going to be in the stadium. We're going to be at home watching that with our masks on.
That's right. Mask up.
But yeah, so Da Bears Essentials Facebook, Da Bears Essentials Instagram, Da Bears Essentials YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel. I'm RP, 2 Moons. It's been good seeing you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Let's go Bears.
Go Bears.